Oh, really?
It's useful too. You didn't realize.
Look at that.
I know they're few and far between, but some people still have them. We still have two, I think, left
We don't have any.
in that one drawer, yes, that haven't been opened. Ah,
You,
they say it was the best
that it?
chapstick. There was a little boy undergoing cancer treatment that, and
What's
this was
that?
when we were still in business, and
Oh, okay.
that was the only thing that would help him
Go
during
ahead.
his
Okay. Uh,
chemo. Yeah.
I'm Max Hanson. We'll start here at the corner. We have several places to talk about. The first place we'll talk about is over on the corner where the used car lot used to be, our pre-owned center, across from the jail. We acquired that in the 90s, and that was where the tornado took out the bigger body shop, and they put the Sonic drive-in there. And when they moved out west, we bought that. And in fact, Don Reed come to us one day. He was the mayor, and he says, "Hey, you ought to buy that corner." So we ended up buying it. And it was just full of stainless steel kitchen tables and items like that. So we donated it down to the 4-H building at the down at the fairgrounds. So that worked out well. This used to be Oberlin Plumbing. I'm sure some people knew that. So in about 1982, Dee Primrose became ill, and Herb Primrose, his son, moved back, and they decided that they wanted to expand the business a little bit, so they bought Oberlin Plumbing. Of course, it was totally different. It was a recessed entry like that building, and it's the upstairs is completely closed off. And there's some interesting information about this building. In 1887, it was a restaurant, and there was a dentist upstairs. In 1893, they sold implements out of here on the first floor, and the second floor was a club room. And I don't know what that, I don't know where to go with that. So, then in 1899, it became a tin shop, which I don't know what that is. Does anybody know what a tin shop is? I would imagine they made fixtures for stoves and maybe custom fixtures. I don't know. 1905, it was a billiard shop. Go in and play billiards. 1911, it was a jewelry store. So it's really been, and then in 1930, it became the plumbing store and stayed that way. Is it okay if we move a little now? Move on there.
Where are you going?
Pardon?
Where are you going?
Just right here.
Okay.
This will be fine if you can. So in 1973 is when I started working here for Primrose Motors. You know, you always say you'd like to have $1 for something you've always done. I'd like to have $1 for every time I went in and out that door. And that is the same door, latch and handle, that's been there before I come here. So it's a brass, and it really held up well. So in 1887, this was a livery stable. I'm sure that kind of door wasn't there, and I'm sure that glass wasn't here. And I doubt that door was like that over there. So if it was 1887 and it had rained, I'd be standing up to my knees in mud, because there wasn't any street here. There wasn't any curb and sidewalk at that point. So in 1889, they started selling implements and buggies. Everybody know what a buggy is? Well, that's what they call these little runarounds they call now. Some people call them buggies that are gas powered, you know. Everybody rides in. Not in Clay Center they don't, because it's illegal. So here comes 1909. Henry Ford started building the Model T in 1908. In 1909, S.W. Engler started selling Fords in here. I have a little story to tell about that. We'll do that in the back end. And the way all those cars back then always come on the rail. That's the only way they could get here. And they made special rail cars for them to fit in, just like they do now. So the price of a car in 1909 was $850. Now, Henry Ford figured out how to have an assembly line. He was the first one that had the piece move and the people stand. And that's what really brought the price down. In fact, the 1924 is $260. And most cars were around $2,000. So that's why he sold a lot of cars. In 1929, Engler sold to Universal Motors. And I've got some pictures of that in the back. 1945 to 49, John Mouse Motors. Really a weird name, but that's what it was called. He bought it in 1945, and in 1949, Primrose. The way D. Primrose got to Clay Center, he come from Kansas City, and he was selling hearses to the funeral homes around the country. And he got acquainted with people here and found out that this was for sale, and that's how D got here. D and Lenorna Primrose was the name. So anyway, Primrose Motors was here 36 years. That's a long time to be in a business spot. And in 1973, like I said, that's when I started here. I was living in Denver, working for a company, and I was in there buying parts one day, and he said, "Hey," he says, "why don't you come to work for me?" I said, "Oh my, no, I can't do that." Well, I ended up coming here, so. Let's just kind of step around the corner here a little bit. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention, are you down? It's actually a historical building now, and they have received a grant to fix it up. It needs some structural things done to it. And so they got a bid for whatever they won't tell me what they was going to do, and that's all right. But it was 3 times what they thought it was going to be, so it's kind of on hold. But it's really nice that it's come to that point that it's going to be saved. And like a lot of them. One thing I haven't figured out, which building was built first. Because the Oberlin building, we'll just step inside, but the brick is on the inside wall of this also. So I don't know if they build them at the same time or this come later. But
A little
anyway,
warm, isn't it?
so we'll move around the corner here a little bit.
Shade.
And we'll put people in the shade.
Yeah.
Okay.
Busy.
Busy ones.
Might be a little quieter.
Yeah. Yes.
Max, watch the mud so you don't fall.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Max, watch the mud so you don't slip.
That means the air conditioner's working.
Is that what
It's
it
been
means?
that since 1955 or 60. Whenever that wasn't going, we knew we had trouble. So this building over here, at some point, was an opera house. Anybody know that? Opera house and the Bonham Hotel sat there where the bank did. And in 1950, when Mr. Primrose come here, there was a smaller house right here, and we think maybe they just rented out rooms for, not like a hotel, but so anyway, it was right there where that car is sitting. Then there was a big home sitting down there where the Family Dollar store sign's at. And there was a veterinary building down at the end on the north side of the alley. And I had heard at one time there was a veterinary here, but I didn't know where. But anyway, it was down there. So, okay, if we'll just maybe proceed back to the corner of the building here. I'm going to go through. I'll meet everybody down there. I'm going to open the back door. Get a drink. Okay. Let's set up here. I think there's room for everybody to come in. I think there's room to come on in. The Glavins were a little, I mean, they said, we got such a mess back here. I said, that's fine. We'll live through the mess. So, just some interesting items before we leave. Might look at some of this, but we won't get into that right now. In 1986, I think it was in February, Primroses told me they were going to sell the business. And I really didn't know what I was going to do. So I called my brother, and he says, well, let's just buy it. And it was that quick. Okay. I said, you better have some money, because Ford likes money. But anyway, we acquired a small loan down at Union State Bank, and so officially, Bruce and Mary and the kids come in after school was out in Denver, so they could get started in school in the fall. So we actually weren't the Ford dealer till January, but we were here running it and they were gone. So that's how that worked out. So the first year we were open, we doubled sales with Ford. So they were happy. You know what they give us? A globe. So imagine that. Wasn't that a real treat? Give us a globe. And if you're there long enough, they give you a plaque. Of course, with any business, there's a lot of challenges. The car business, it's cash. Cash flow is just extreme. You trade for somebody's vehicle and they owe $20,000 on it. They don't have a title, so you got to have the money to pay it off so you can get a title. And in that meantime, it's not insured. So spend a lot of times down here putting vehicles in when the weather comes. I could get about 17 in here. And Bob really liked that.
Oh, yeah.
He liked that I got him inside.
Oh, yeah.
But you never did insure the lot. No, or did you?
We did.
Yes, they used cars. You used cars at one time, then that quit, right?
Yeah, I drive by every morning to be sure everything was okay.
Now the new cars were floor planned through Ford. So they actually owned them. You just paid the interest on it. And along with that interest come insured on the lot. They would insure it for hail. And hail, of course, is the worst thing in car lot. That's just the worst thing that can happen. But it was a lot of work, a lot of hours, kind of like farming. It just never stopped. And so we had a good time doing it and provided for 2 families. And we had good help. Lynn was one of them at one time. He's a really good mechanic. We hated to lose him. You went to Gas City, right? Oh, Hatfield. Right. Yeah. But the training, keeping up with the technicians became really tough. By the time we'd get done with all the training for a technician, you've got $100,000 in it. And then you got to keep them. In 2006, my brother passed away. So, of course, the employees wanted to know what's going to happen. I said, I'll give you 10 years. And we were here 10 years. So, but anyway, this place has been a car place for a long time, and a buggy and whatever, horses, transportation. When we came, there weren't any fluorescents. It was all just hanging bulbs. We put all that. It did look a little better then. But they had put wooden pillars in here, so we had to have, structurally we added all this steel up here to hold. You can see where they were, because you couldn't get in here. Just wasn't made to get cars and trucks in here. In this corner, that wall wasn't there. That's the big elevator, and that's the bottom of it. That's the roof now in there, ceiling, and that's where they took the Model Ts upstairs. Because remember, they had no room out here, and that was pretty common back in that time, that the service department was upstairs. They'd elevate them up, and that floor up there is just covered with oil. I think you've been up there, haven't you? Yeah. If you look outside, there's windows all the way around to here, and you could open those windows out and get little air through there, so it wasn't quite so bad. I think there's still a Model T engine stand up there for a motor, I think.
Still a lot of parts.
There's parts, yeah, it's been a lot of people come through here. I used to have guys from back east come in and they want to go to the basement and look for parts. And one time one of them come up and he said, "You've been really fair to me on what I bought, but I got to tell you, you got something down there that's really expensive." I said, "Really?" I had 2 sets of lug nuts. Does everybody know what a lug nut is? It's what holds your wheel on, the nuts. They were made specially for a Boss 302 Mustang. They have 2 more threads to them. And I didn't know that. And he said, "I know a guy will buy a set of them." And they brought $600 for the lug nuts. And then we had another set we sold later. And I still got one left. Well, I have more than that, don't I? I forgot. We have another building. Maybe most people don't. Our hobby shop is the old Buick Olds Cadillac dealership out West End. So a lot of the stuff went there. And I wished I'd have got a lot more of it because there's some stuff that got thrown away that we didn't. But in 2016, we, Glaven's come to town. And
So Max said,
here's my
he wanted me to
here.
tell this little story. So Max and I moved here in early 2011, and immediately started working for Hanson Ford. I never worked for Max Hanson, but I actually did work for Hanson Ford. And I say that because I really respected Max as owning this business. However, if anybody knows me, they know I'm pretty outspoken. And so I couldn't work for my husband, but I definitely could work for Hanson Ford. So anyways, I did. And so we would actually have meetings. You know, if you work with your spouse, you know that you really do have to be very structured in business dealings. And so we would have meetings, and we knew Max was, once he hit 70, we started getting concerned because we wanted our employees to have a place to be, and we wanted the town to have a Ford dealership, and Ford would not allow me. I was on the hook for anything owed for Ford to Ford. However, Ford would never have recognized me as an owner. Unfortunately, when Bruce passed, within 30 days, Max had a letter from Ford, and we still have the letter, offering their condolences, but saying something's got to change because Max couldn't be, he wasn't the sole owner. Business is business, unfortunately. And so we knew that if something happened to Max, I would have 30 days to try to figure out what to do. That was very scary. And so anyways, we tried through Ford to put the business up for sale. And there was a lot of things to jump through. And everybody that Ford would send us wanted us to do the financing. Well, that's not the idea of retiring, is to carry the note for a Ford dealership. So we couldn't. And Lori Huber, if anybody remembers Lori Huber, she was when we had economic development. She kept coming to us, asking us to please list this building and this car lot as used car sales. And Max refused. He said, "No, I'm not going to go down without it being a Ford dealership." So anyways, then she came to us a couple months later and she said, "Okay, I have a realtor, a broker in Texas. Will you talk to him?" And we're pretty stubborn. We're like, "All right, we'll talk to him." So we talked to him, and they wanted a lot of money to take on the sale. But they said they could probably find us a buyer. So anyways, I did a lot of the paperwork. Get into Christmas. Max is a great business owner, but he is a little bit of a procrastinator. And I kept telling him, "Max, I can't do anymore. I can't do anymore. You got to help me out here." And he kept putting it off. We go to Kansas City for the holidays. We were coming back on New Year's Day, January 1st afternoon. It was a Sunday. We're driving down the highway, and I said, "How much do you have to do when we get home?" "Oh, I got to do some stuff out west. I got to do this, that, these, those." I said, "Okay, I got to unpack." I said, "I'll meet you at Hanson Ford at 7 o'clock. and we're not leaving that place till we have the paperwork done. Okay. So we met here at 7, and we had our meeting, and we got all the paperwork done. Went home at 9:30. Life is good. I faxed it all to this man in Texas, and by January 3rd, Glavins were walking down the street of Clay Center, Kansas. So it's like, thank you, Lord. So anyways, it happened very quickly, and everything was great. We got a contract on that Friday, and at like 5 o'clock, we got a fax contract. And so Max and I took it home and sat down and had another meeting, and we called our accountant at the time, Mark Woodruff, to come over and look it over. I mean, it was 14 pages, and all I understood was offer to buy and Glavins. That's it. Everything in between was just mute to me at that point. So anyways, Mark said, it all looks pretty good, and we didn't want to counter with more money. We just wanted to counter with stuff they could give us, like oil changes and the ability to buy cars at invoice price for a few years, things like that. So it was all good, because we didn't want, first of all, we just wanted the dealership to stay. And we knew that anybody that came here through Ford was going to have a lot of money and a lot of commitment, because Ford would not allow anybody to buy the business unless they could put a new building in within 2 years.
Pardon?
Okay. So anyways, I'm
How
almost
long?
to the end. Okay. So anyway, the funny story was, Mark's sitting there and he said, everything looks really good. And he said, but you need a lawyer out of Salina. We're like, really? Okay, well. So then Mark leaves. Max and I talk some more. I'm like, I'm going to get Bruce Wingard. I think he can handle this. And Mac's like, okay. So I wrote a note on a piece of paper. Hey, Bruce, call me Monday morning. Got something to talk to you about. And I taped it to his door. And he called and he's like, yeah, I can handle it. So anyways, through all of that, Jeremy had a team of lawyers, and we'd have these meetings, and Bruce would always say, I'm here with my team of lawyers, and they'd say, I'm here with my team of lawyers, and it'd just be Max and I, so anyways,
And anybody knows Bruce, he could pull it off.
And so then 3 months later, exactly 3 months later, we walked through here and handed out paychecks for the last time. So yeah.
Well, it was so important to the community, because when we were in business, it was usually run anywhere from $40,000 to $50,000 a month in sales tax. Well, now they're at $100,000. So it's so important for in the property taxes they'll be paying, and they're still paying here.
So we'll be indebted to the Glavins for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
And
so
the
if you need a
community
Ford, go talk to them. One thing I forgot to mention, we were the only ones that ever had Ford in our name. None of the other dealers before had Ford, didn't have Ford. So I wanted to have the Ford in the name. There's some things here, and we've run out of time. I'd like everybody to look at these. You can take them home. We won't have time here. See if some of your relation that used to live here in 1913 owned what they owned for a vehicle. It's amazing. And my grandpa wasn't driving a Ford, so I'm pretty upset about that. Yeah.
How fun.
Just
We're not going up in the big elevator.
no. Well, when I first came here, I remember they had trouble with it, and the Primroses had somebody come out from Kansas City, and in 74 or 5, it was $500 to look at it. So we figured that was going to be short-lived, and we needed a spot to wash. We didn't have a place to wash cars, so that was it. Do we have to go now? Okay. Well, there's some item. This is some of the items that we used to give out to people, and I guarantee you, people still got that. They still have that, and they still have this. That chapstick was the best advertising. Who threw their chapstick away? The pen quit way up. This is one of our first pens. So that was that. This was when Bruce and I bought, there was an article in the paper when we bought the dealership. The lowest price car ever sold in Clay Center was $250 new. The highest, and it was here, the highest price car that was ever sold in Clay Center was this one, $160,000.
What is it?
It's a Ford GT, they called it.
What year was that?
Interesting factoid, the man that bought that, his daughter is married to Harry Connick Jr.
Oh, really?
Yes.
This Larry Wilkerson, it used to be our service and parts man, he made this.
That's nice.
This was my retirement party. Tessie made a whole bunch of these. She must have drank a lot of Crown Royal. Yeah. Every place in town was saving Crown Royal. Bob, I bet you got one of these at home.
Well, I do it.
Yeah.
We're still finding
I
one.
think we do.
Find them at estate sales and
Yeah.
stuff. So nobody threw them away. Hats, they all threw them away. That was our first hat that we ever got. They
We've
were
managed to
pretty
save
yunky, but
enough key rings for all of our grandkids. We have 9, and enough hats for all the grandsons.
this was our first D plate in 1987.
Crazy.
One of our first
Evidently, when you pulled into town out by
calendars.
on Broughton
People
Road,
loved
there was
calendars because they could write on them and
whole
Yeah.
big
their
thing.
appointments.
And this came off.
And
of
this was the
that.
100-year anniversary calendar
way
that
they
Ford
did
put
it.
Yes,
out.
they yes, they lined them
No,
up on
that's
a
a good one.
big
And that was our
pole
sales
thingy.
agreement, January of '87. A lot of stuff, not enough time.
Thank you
Oh,
very
yeah.
much.
Oh, you're welcome.